weather. You all made it. Thank you. Looking good. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, June 1.
June 1st. I'm going to start with Patrick's bio. Jeebus. Patrick Jeebus is a vice president at Green Room Agency. For the past 9 years, he's led integrated PR programs for innovative consumer goods and worked in tandem with the social and digital departments to maximize press coverage, audience engagement, and to stimulate sales. Patrick has planned and staffed media tours for clients in major cities like San Francisco, New York, and Vegas. He's also had tremendous success providing strategic counsel rooted in expertly crafted campaigns and client initiatives. Patrick also provides counsel on media and communication strategies for the board of the Miami Beach Pride. Patrick, thank you. Thank you very much. Move on to Alex Miranda.
Yay.
Alex.
Woohoo! My man.
We should all do a
Stand up, Miami. Raya, this way.
Alex, after a decade of hosting local and national television shows and newscasts, Alex joined WSBN 7 News Deco Drive as their entertainment reporter. Prior to Deco Drive, Alex was a breaking news and social media anchor at WTSP TV 10 News Tampa Bay. Before 10 News, Alex was a host on Huffington Post, Up Close Live, driving headline-grabbing conversations on entertainment, U.S. politics, world news, sexuality, and Latino issues. Alex has also contributed to the Wendy Williams Show.
I think I'm the only person who's been on the show that said, "Como esta?"
That's awesome. I love it.
I think I'm the only person who's ever
Love it.
Alex, okay, so in addition to Wendy Williams, he's commented for the fabulous life of VH1 and appeared on Maury and The Record with Greta Van Stressen and TV shows. Alex broke into primetime in 2012, hosting the CBS reality dating show 3. He also
You got canceled.
It happens.
He's modest too, I love it. He also uniquely served as confidant, matchmaker, and mentor to the 3 single women searching for true love. So if anybody's single, Cupid is to my right. Alex also reported for OutQ News on Sirius Satellite Radio, covering LGBTQ issues for New England and South Florida. Alex Miranda! Last but certainly not least, Amrit Kapai is an Indian-American lawyer and TV personality who has most recently gained notoriety for being a cast member of the Bravo reality series Family Karma, which premiered in 2020. Family Karma. He's also an entrepreneur and co-founder of the underwear line, Underwear Dance Party, because it is a party
I love
that
it.
is. The luxury underwear line puts an end to monotonous men's underwear, all while empowering individuals to be bold, carefree, and to live their lives free of judgment. Thank you. Underwear. And those are our 3 contestants. So those are our 3 panelists, and thank you guys once again. So I'd like to start the question. I have my Rainbow Bright situation over here. And I think I'd like to start the question with Family Karma, Amrit. So Amrit, you're a lawyer, entrepreneur, brand influencer, reality TV show star. Tell me, how on earth do you manage your messaging? How do you do that?
How do I manage my
How do you manage your messaging?
So, I was a little confused when I read this question. So let me make sure I understand the question properly. Manage literal messaging?
So for
From the outside world or my
example,
brand?
your brand.
Okay.
So, So whenever you're posting for social media or you decide to do a new business venture, how do you manage that? What's the thought process before you press send, before you sign on the dotted line?
That's a great question. So, first I use my own common sense. It helps that I'm an attorney, it helps that I've been practicing for almost 11 years now, because you really learn in that profession, putting aside you learn how to practice law and advocate for your clients. You learn that common sense is something we take for granted every single day. I make sure that I stop for a second, maybe more than a second, definitely more than a second, a few minutes. I think about, what am I saying? These are the words that are coming out of my mouth. You know, before Family Karma, when it was just me being Amrit, it wouldn't be as important. After Family Karma aired, after I suddenly had a tremendous amount of eyes on me, I realized that every single word, every single thought that I convey in writing or orally matters. So I have sort of the general protocol in place. For instance, I reach out to my publicist, or I reach out to the network to make sure, this is what I want to do, is this okay? Make sure I clear all the appearances that I need to do, and then after that I just use my own, discrimination. Is this something I should be doing? Is this something that means something to me? Or, is this going to reflect poorly on my brand? So I would say it's a combination of common sense and then also utilizing the professionals who do this for a living.
Excellent. Starts with common sense. Stop and think, then react. I tell that to my 10-year-old all the time. Stop and think. Use your brain, right? I love it. Tell me, you're on Bravo, you got this awesome platform. How have you leveraged it?
How have I leveraged my platform on Bravo? When Family Karma became a thing, which doesn't happen to everyone. I feel like we all say we need a reality TV show about our lives. I said the same thing growing up, but who would have thought it would actually happen? When we started working with Bravo, who has been so incredibly supportive of us and who has given us the opportunity to tell our story as first-born generation Indians in America, I made it clear to them that I didn't want this show to be another sort of Housewives where we're going out for cocktails and we're flipping over tables and we're spilling drinks or throwing drinks on each other. Yeah, that happens, but I didn't want that to be the central focus and the central theme of our show, because, we all have, my entire cast have very real stories and very real experiences to show America. Before Family Karma, you would have, one-off cast members on TV, and for the most part, they were pretty much fulfilling Indian stereotypes. You'd have a cab driver, you'd have the guy from The Simpsons who owned a 7-Eleven. And it was time, for us to show America that we're Indian, we're living in America, but we don't fit those stereotypes. So I wanted to make sure that I was leveraging the brand in the most positive way possible, in the most productive way possible. We want to entertain our viewers. I mean, listen, that's what reality TV is, that's what Bravo's about. There's gotta be drama. But there's more to that. We want to tell real stories, we want to show real struggles and real issues that we're overcoming on a daily basis. And I want to make sure I leverage my brand as much as possible in that direction.
Very nice. Thank you. Speaking of brands, I want to go on to Alex. Alex, you work for HuffPost. You've been a contributor to HuffPost, the station in Tampa, currently right now, Deco Drive. Tell me, you're an on-air personality, and then you also create content. You're a producer, so you work, you write the scripts, you get in the edit bay, you start, you bring the script from the top to the bottom, finish to completion. Tell me, what does it take to go from your brain to tonight at 11 on Deco Drive, or whatever time it comes out? What does it take to get that story across the finish line?
I'm glad that you didn't ask about a brand, because I don't have one. I was like, how do I answer that question?
You are the brand, honey.
My brand is just getting up, getting that paycheck, and going home. That's the brand. No, the brand is gay pride. The brand is just being yourself and being funny on Deco Drive without being malicious. You gotta have a little snark for Deco, but never to be like me. So that's, I guess, the brand. But as far as getting a story on the air,
What's it say?
my position, my job is very specific, very unique. Patrick's worked with me before. I don't really know if any other reporter has the same kind of, route that they take for a story, but I get super heavily involved in my stories. And I really love when PR people help me because I do ask a lot. Like, I really do, because I come in, you can kind of go in and be like, okay, tell me about the restaurant, tell me about the show, at the Arts Center, what is it about? Okay, cool, who's gonna like it? And then you finish that, you go home, done. I want to entertain viewers, and I want to inform them too. I want to do both. So in order to do that, I always, in my mind, I'm obsessed with the idea of people are always on their phone, and nobody really watches TV that intently anyway, so how can you just get them to move their eyeballs to the screen for 2 minutes? If not 2 minutes, please, like 30 seconds, so that you know what I'm talking about. And so, because of that, I when I have a concept, I don't know how relevant this is to you guys, so please let me know if there's anything relevant that you want to,
Give us all the
say.
tea.
But I think of an idea, for example, if it's a show at the Arts Center, first thing that comes to my mind, first kind of like, what would make this story great? I do not filter it at all. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the opposite. I don't, because I want to get to what is the thing that, because the first thing that comes to my mind for a story is the first thing that comes to the viewer's mind with a story. So if we're like, okay, well, what would be really funny, or what would be really entertaining, or what's really the question that I want the reporter to ask, we almost never ask that damn question, So I just try to really unfilter, and I try to think, okay, what does the viewer want out of this? What joke do they want to, how can you make fun of this thing? Because a lot of stuff that we talk about on Deco is like stupid, and we know it, but it's stupid in a good way. It's fun, it's entertainment, and that's what it's for. So anyway, so I go in with a very unfiltered concept. I have a few ideas that are very raw, and they're not played with at all, and I make sure to kind of like jot those down so I don't gaslight myself into thinking they're not cool, anymore. And then, I don't know, I go about the day and I do it. Like, you face people on an interview set, and people are like, what, you want to do what? And I just always tell myself, do not back down. Like, this is what the viewer wants. There was a story that I did with Rick Ross, the rapper, like local rapper, recently, and only a week before I was scheduled already to interview him, he had some massive viral moment about a delivery guy who showed up at his house. I don't know if you guys remember this one, but and the delivery guy didn't know who he was, and so he was like, I have a delivery for Rick Ross, and he's like, I'm Rick Ross, and this guy's like, I need ID, and so it went super viral, and I'm like, I cannot, what would, I was like, my fantasy for this story, and this is also selfish for me too, because I want to live these moments myself. My fantasy for this story is, let me do a thing where I show up to our interview and I don't know who Rick Ross is, and then I ask him for ID. But these are concepts going into a story. And again, I don't know if this is relevant to you guys at all. But going into a story that they're so in your head when they're not filtered, right? When they're not touched with, and they're kept perfectly in your head. They're great. When you get there, people are going to look at you sideways, and you have to really stand by yourself in order to do them. And so the better I've gotten at my job, I think the more I've really stuck to that. So I try to stick to the concepts that are untoyed with my head. And so I do those. But because of that, when I'm on a shoot, and maybe this can factor back to you guys, but I do ask a lot of help from people, and I will typically get the PR people on a set and be like, hey, can you act with me? Can you be like that other person? And yeah, so then I do all that. I shoot the stuff. It just really depends if we're airing that story that day, or if it's the next day, or a week from now, or a month from now, as far as how I go about the rest of the day. But let's say we're airing it the same day, I guess, then it is just a madhouse, crazy heart attack of a 24 hours, and then write it, get in the bay. I'm super OCD about it being the idea that I had in my head, because once you hand it over to somebody else, it can become something completely different. So it's like, especially with humor, the stuff that I do, like a joke, if the video's 3 frames too short, the joke falls flat. You know, it's like it has to be so specific for it to work. And so yeah, very specific about those things. And I don't know if there's a more specific, I don't know,
that
like
was great. What I really heard, and I'm sure everybody else heard that too, was you were able to capitalize off of a viral moment. So there was a moment that happened that all these millions of people saw, which was Rick Ross, no one recognizing him. So you put that into your story, so you were kind of capitalize off that.
And I try to make a story pop. There are stories all day long that air on TV. If we're talking about like little entertainment or lifestyle stories, let's say it's about a restaurant or it's about something that's, I mean, you know, dime a dozen, like everybody's seen it. So for me, because I'm also of my own generation, TV to me is not necessarily that interesting. So I kind of am trying to write a story and have my photographer shoot a story that is so berserk entertaining. Of course, I want it to be berserk entertaining and it falls down here, but it's still going to be more entertaining than just a standard, what do you do, what's this, that, and the other. So I try to make it so almost internet friendly, where it's just so like, what is going on? That you are forced, like even somebody who thinks I'm so annoying and whatever, they're still gonna, what's this guy doing now? And then they're gonna turn, and then, oh, he made that joke, oh, it was about that restaurant. So the next time they're thinking of going to dinner, oh, that idiot on TV talked about that restaurant, and I remember that because of that stupid thing that he did. And so there's another element of getting somebody to pay attention to the topic of the story. So yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Yes.
I think one of the things that makes Alex a very special person in media is a lot of us PR folk are really encumbered by messaging. And so on the one side, we're thinking, what does our client actually want? What is the message penetration? What are the KPIs I'm tracking to? And the fearlessness with which he approaches the story is what makes it interesting. Because I think we can sometimes either get in our own ways or our clients get in their own ways about, well, this is the brand guidelines, these are the things, or it's filtered up through legal, or it's filtered through, sorry, no offense, it's filtered through these things, you know, it goes through these filters, and then by the time sometimes we're able to go out with something, us as really responsible PR practitioners say, there's nothing here. There is nothing here. And there's nothing more frustrating than us having to approach a media member, because in some cases we know that it is not responsible media relations, whereas with Alex approaches it with that fearlessness and creativity that when you're on a shoot, you're gonna get it done, because that's what's happening in the moment. And I think that's what makes him a very special storyteller, is the fearlessness and the courage with which he approaches a story that I think sometimes we as PR people are not allowed to do. Or because our brands are so conservative, or we know that there are repercussions for some of those things, he's not encumbered by those. And I think that that's what makes the stories very watchable.
Well, I also so I battle with PR people too. So I battle with them because I know that they have their job and I have my job, and I respect their job and I also respect my job. And I think the best stories when both lose 50% and then you get them halfway, because you guys come on at the shoot, and I know all the messages are kind of throwing it at my face, and I hear it. It's all the buzzwords, and I know what you want me to do, I know what you want me to say, and I go, okay, because I also respect the business owner, I respect all that. But I think more than anything, we need to sell the story. Like, that's the biggest thing. So we'll bring all the ideas together, and then I'll come with my concept, and I try to apply those things to a point where I think that they're gonna work. Because if I don't think that they're really gonna, at the end of the day, work, then, if I think I'm gonna be able to sell that product better by doing something else, I'll do that. But I always factor in those things. But sometimes, especially with PR people who have not worked with me before, they are like, oh my God, what is he doing? This guy's gonna get me fired. Like, what is happening? Like, I'm supposed to tell him to do this, and yeah. So it's a little bit of a, but I like that. I like to get on and be like, a little bit of a fight, and then we come up with some cool thing that just, that's of the moment. It's not something that was pre-planned like 2 months ago. It's like something that actually was just created in those 2 hours. So
Patrick. So you and Alex have worked together. I know you guys worked together for Miami Beach Pride. I'm sure you pitched Alex and you didn't hit it out the park on the first go round. So tell me about that process.
Yes, so as a PR person approaching a Pride week, we had a lot of narratives that were really important to us as part of our week-long programming. For those that may not be as familiar, a lot of people know Pride for the festival and parade. Of course, that is a tremendous culmination, but we also have a lot of cultural programming and other things that go into that week of community outreach, supporting drag queens as well as our artists, and those things are really important to us. And this year, we also had a really important grant for our legacy couples, which honors those that have been together for at least a decade. We got a grant from the state and AARP to shoot their stories with an oral history, a video retrospective on video and stills, as well as they each submitted an object to go into a museum exhibition that was called 400 Plus Years of LGBT Love. And it was something that for me personally, I was very attached to. I love that we got to honor, as a storyteller, I think a lot of PR folk can honor that. We were able to honor their stories. We had two gentlemen that were together for 54 years, which is incredible. One was in the military, his husband is Mexican, so there are also cultural nuances there that just made their story really, really heartwarming. So knowing all this, right, like this is not something that the media, the public knew. It was our job to get those stories out. And so I really wanted to approach the Pride narrative of a multi-pronged, here's some of the things that we really want to communicate, but also thinking like a media person, what is the visual, how do we get this across the finish line? And I was working with one of the producers, Odette, who is amazing, and she is a straight shooter. Everything that I pitched, I had visuals, I had paragraphs, I really tried to paint a picture with words to make it clear what would be on screen, that I felt blended the ability to tell our story and stay on message, but then also to make something that people want to watch. She hated everything. And the first note was no. Or she had to call me and she's like, no, this is not it. This is not it.
What did you pitch first that got?
The first thing that I pitched was our queer artists. Actually, I had even had a PowerPoint slide that I had thinking of him that I was like, okay, because one of our artists is a conservationist for turtles. And so he goes and he paints turtles and he dives and everything. Actually, I think we talked about this a little bit. But I had said to Odette, I was like, okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna use my own money. I'm gonna buy a giant Rubbermaid tub. I'm getting a scuba set for Alex for him to I did a slide. I really signed you up for a lot. I had pictures of swim caps. It's on brand. I was like, it's gonna be fun. It's like it's a high octane. I felt like I was. Michael Bay, it's gonna be a high octane segment on turtle conservation. And she is absolutely not. Absolutely not. So
hindsight, Madison Wise.
Not exactly.
Turtles
So
aren't exactly high on.
yeah.
And that's the thing, you have to always target your stories to show that or the outlet that you're going to, because what works on 60 Minutes is great for them and it's not good for us, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then for a news story, that's a whole other thing that won't work for us, but it'll work for them. So.
And it was, and so now is the thing of then really trying to then go into, okay, I think a lot of us have probably had the moment where we think we're really good PR people, right? This pitch is it, and it does not land. So then you kind of take the step back and say, all right, then let's reevaluate. Let's talk about what is actually, what do you want? What is it that you're looking for from us? Because then I think that's one of the most important things that we in this industry can do is ask the right questions. If it's not going to be what we initially thought, that is okay. But really trying to understand more of what gaps are you trying to fill in your content. Thankfully, with an organization like Miami Beach Pride, we had a number of different narratives that I knew we could find something that would fit. And so then it really was, working together on what we were able to get across the finish line with someone like Alex, who had the expertise and the know-how and really the enthusiasm for the storytelling to say, I want to do this. And I think that's what made it great, was we had the good fortune of having someone in media who, for lack of a better word, gives a shit and gets it. And so it did let us tell a much more compelling story because we had someone who was motivated and passionate, and then you had a PR person who was ready to answer the flurry of text messages when he was in the edit bay to say, let's get this done. I think we both had a lot of excitement and passion to get these stories told. So it was about working together as a cohesive team in order to make Odette happy. because that's what I thought of. I, as also someone who is a people pleaser, I was like, I'm gonna get Odette. I'm gonna send something that she's gonna love, and I'll get her. I'll get her.
What ultimately was the story, not the turtles? What was the story?
Wasn't the turtles.
about?
So we had two actually really great stories that I feel like I'm really proud of the packages that Alex really worked hard to put together. The first was really centered on Thina Dion, who, if you've not been to the Art House Drag Brunch, is a venerable drag queen in Miami and an amazing person on camera. So we did a whole thing about her getting ready, and we were able to talk a lot about our events and programs. That for that story was really important, being able to say, this is what's happening when. So it was done in a really fun way. One of our partners that week was the Moxie Hotel. They graciously hosted us. They were lovely to work with, so we had all of the space, and we put together what was one of the most fun packages I think I've ever worked on, especially here locally. And the second was really with our grand marshals. So we really wanted to have them have some media spotlights as well, and we had some interesting narratives with Max Emerson, who is an activist and an Instagram influencer, and his partner Andres, who I really like that we got to tell his story as a member who served in the military. So he was also an immigrant, came from Colombia, served in the military. So we got to kind of even weave in some immigration, some Don't Ask, Don't Tell at a time. He served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell at a time when we were facing Don't Say Gay. So even though it was still deco, it was really fun, it was lighthearted, there was tongue-in-cheek. We had a moment of levity that I think made for a really impactful package.
Both stories did. Yeah. They were like super fun and ridiculous and silly, but they both had like a lot of meanings in them. It was like coded and hidden inside the script, like surgery. Yeah.
Well, because the other thing that I also watched too, what I think was also interesting, what sometimes we in this industry forget, there was a lot of content that was shot. And so we were approaching with a lot of footage to kind of say, okay, now we've got to weave this all together. And there was, and to a degree, was a little bit of improv, on both sides, where Andres and Max had also brought their dog, and so we wanted to include the dog as well, because we know, what do people want to see? Dogs, babies, yeah, exactly. So we were able to kind of also even use the dog as something fun, and one of the stories that we pitched for that was, Max has kind of made a name for himself as an Instagram influencer. So we talked, and this is one that Odette was lukewarm on. She wasn't quite giving me the what I actually craved from her, but she was lukewarm in that one of the tips for Alex to be an influencer as well, and in media and on social media. So we were able to kind of come up with some root kind of pillar content, and then kind of work out from it based on what we had been given. And I think that what netted was some really fun pieces that I think we both walked away pretty proud.
And it was like definitely a team. Patrick was so helpful, and that just for me, because I always like to be kind of I try to be self-aware and realize that I can be very demanding, especially with stories that I really care about. So Patrick, as the PR person on both of those shoots, I would be like, Patrick, I need a hat or a boa or whatever, and he would get them, and like I know that's going way above and beyond them, that is not expected in any PR person's
Job description.
Yeah, description. I know that, but it really was like we ended up really telling a good story, and I think we kind of really sold Miami Beach Pride, and it was just this very active back and forth, and just, I don't know, you're just really, really, really helpful and like very there for everything that I needed for this concept.
Well, thank you. I mean, I view us, I think where we can really be the most effective in our roles is to be a resource, right? We all have a story that we are being paid to tell, right? Or whether it's a client, whether you're in-house, you do have KPIs and all those things that the suits are gonna look at. But at the end of the day, I think where the industry gets a really bad reputation are the people that don't take that component seriously. They're putting a mail merge together with a pitch that has not been vetted, it is generic, you're not giving the journalist anything to work with, and you're just asking the journalist for an ad. That is not, and then that's why journalists don't like us, because we ask for ads. When the reality is we are a resource and we need to give them a story. And sometimes the story doesn't fit. But that's why if Alex says, you know what, I need a hat for this, I looked at my Google Maps, I was 2 blocks away from the Pride office, I ran down and I knew we had hats there. Like, that is my job in that moment, to be the resource for the person that has the vision to tell the story. And so that's why I don't ever think that there are things that are too big to be asked for in those types of venues, because what was most important was getting that story told in a really compelling way. And that is our job.
Relationships. Perfect segue for relationships. Sounds like you guys have established and excellent working relationships. Let's switch gears to Amrit. I want you to talk a little bit about relationships and relationship building. How have you managed to create such a strong relationship with Bravo
How have I managed to create a strong relationship with
and
Bravo?
keep it?
Well, Bravo and I are now codependent. I have 2 husbands. One is right there. The second husband and wives are the people at Bravo. I mean, to be honest, Bravo made me a brand. Before I was nobody. Not nobody. I was somebody, especially my mom. But after Bravo, I became more of a public figure. So, it's this codependent relationship. I need Bravo, and now Bravo needs me. Because, my perspective, and I'm just listening to you guys speak, which is so incredibly insightful, but I think the big difference with my story is that I'm telling my own story. I don't have a team of professionals. I don't show up, when we're filming and there's a PR team that says, make sure you say this, don't say this. No, I show up, I get mic'd, and I'm telling my story. There's no dress rehearsal, there's no let's do this and don't say this. It's just, I just tell the story how it is. So I think the more honest I am, the more authentic I am, it really shows when people are watching me on TV. It really shows when people are watching the episodes, and I think Bravo really appreciates that because, in life, when you're not being genuine, people realize it. In a conversation you could be having off camera or on camera, people will immediately know it. They'd be like, you're not being honest, and I can tell. And if we think we're smarter than everyone else, we're like, oh, they don't realize it. They realize it. 100% they do. So, it's a healthy codependent relationship I have with the network. I need them, they need me. We have the same goal, which is for the show to be as successful as possible, which is to have as many seasons as possible, because the more seasons that I have, the more that I get to tell my story, and the more that I can have people relate to me. I always tell people, I joke, well not joke, I'm actually very serious. When I was growing up, as a young Indian boy living in America, and I was struggling with my own sexuality issues, I wish I would have had someone on TV, who looked like me, who was Indian. I might have seen LGBT folks of different other backgrounds and ethnicities, but I didn't see someone who was Indian. I think it would have been a less isolating and scary and lonely experience for me. So hopefully I'm that person to a lot of kids, and not just kids, adults, teenagers, and whatever age you are. That's what's important to me. So yeah, it's just, and it's doing what I'm told, following instructions. I feel like a lot of my advice is like advice you could probably give to your kids. Follow instructions. If Bravo says do this, you do it that way. Okay? Don't do this, you don't do that. Okay, you don't want to make them mad. So it's like any, like I said, relationship you have with IRA.
So honesty, authenticity, just keeping it real pretty much. That's how you've been able to keep this relationship going. I want to hear what's a surefire way to blow it? What's a surefire way to really ruin a relationship? Alex, you can speak up. Patrick, anybody that wants to jump in.
From like a PR perspective.
PR perspective, how can you ruin a relationship?
I just from what I hear, just being in the Deco office and knowing which things tend to work, and then we do have repeat relationships because you have a bond. Like for example, Patrick and I have developed that where, Patrick's like, hey, he texts me or Odette. From now on, like when he sends it, we're really gonna look at it because we already know that we work very well together. But I think I'm not even the person that really people are supposed to pitch to. So that really goes to Odette. I'm just so busy. I'm obviously the person you really should be pitching to because that's what it looks like on TV. But I'm busy, all day, so I really don't have time to look at it. And I get emails all day long, and I don't even. This is gonna really annoy you guys. I don't even look at them. And it's so bad. It's so bad. These are perfectly crafted, wonderful emails, and I'll even get the one where it's like just following up, and I'm like, oh my god, I feel so guilty because I don't even have time to breathe during the workday. So those really should be going to Odette. But just based on that, and based on when I forward something to Odette that I happen to catch, and I'm like, hey, this looks interesting, send it over. She'll always write back, what's the story? Where are the visuals? And so there's TV, I can only speak from TV. TV is, we are so busy. And I don't know if that's fully understood sometimes by people who are pitching us stories. We don't have time to look through like a really long, email. What's the story? Why is it good for us? Because we're not, for example, Deco Drive is not just a public service. We're a show, and we have to have ratings, and we have to sell, advertising. It has to be good for us. And so when the good for us and the good for, the publicists unite, that's gold. That's amazing. So what's the story? Why is it interesting? Why are our viewers going to like it? Why are viewers going to care? And so also, does it match the brand of what you guys are sending it to? Like, is it a Deco Drive story, or is it more a news story? Is it a 60-minute story? Is it, so anyway, so not knowing the audience, we get those a lot where I'm like, this is a mass email. I don't even look at it, because you can just tell it's like, hi, media outlet. And I'm like, oh no! Like, no thank you.
Doesn't make it feel special.
Yeah, well, and it's just, if there isn't, if you can tell that it's a mass email, obviously the sender of the email didn't check to see if it's even good for us.
Right.
So if they don't check that, it's probably not going to be good for us. Probably. So that's the thing that kind of will immediately not be like, oh no, never them. Just the email will just be skipped over.
Right.
So that'll be one. That's a very practical bit of advice. The email will not even be looked at. And then sometimes, you guys kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but sometimes I'll get an email and it'll be almost like condescending, like or patronizing, like this outlet or this publicity agency or whatever is kind of doing us a favor. It's like okay, so that's like a no, that kind of goes, and not being prepared. This is another one. Know who you're sending it to. This is a TV segment, 2 minutes. You have interviews, and then you have me reading track. When I read track, that's the, and the restaurant also comes with, Well, all the times that I'm saying that, there has to be video to cover that. So what video is there? And if the event hasn't happened yet and there's no B-roll, we can't do it because from a practical standpoint, we need to cover that track with something. So having the TV element thought out ahead of time. Patrick has been great with that. Okay, so after the first round, didn't work, we came back and it was like, this location, we have these people, they've already signed off on the location, we have this star that's gonna do it, Athena. These are the elements, these are the fun bits about it. Deco viewers will like this because la la la, boom, 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 boom. Great, so we can just say, oh, okay, easy, because all we're trying to do is fill air. That's it. All we're trying to do is fill air. I think that's kind of like the thing at the end of the day that maybe people forget. We're trying to fill air. We want to do less work. So if the publicist has done the work ahead of time and it's easy, okay, fill it in, Sam, book that, Thursday, 2 o'clock, done. Moving on to the next thing. Segment booked. Then the publicist got their, that client, scratched off the list. Perfect. Because it's just, so those things, like, so flipping it around, what works is that being prepared, knowing what we need on our end, being straight to the point, and yeah.
So Patrick, I'm going to come back over here. You were talking about don't say gay earlier. We all live in Florida, so everybody's heard of that. But I want to get a little bit deeper and talk about the fact that I'm sure Miami Beach Pride is not in favor of don't say gay. So obviously we all hear don't say gay and we say boo, that sucks. But that's my knee-jerk reaction. What do you as a PR professional say? Are you like Amber? Do you stop, pause, think, or do you write some nasty copy? Like what's the process with that? Considering that Florida does sponsor Miami Pride.
Sure.
So walk me through the nuances of writing copy and speak to that, please.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that was one of the more unique challenges that we face this year because we have a lot of amazing state partners that give us money. We want to keep a good relationship and in certain cases be an advocacy group. So for us it was very important to make it very clear what our stance was. And I had to work very closely with the Pride's attorney on that statement because I am an emotional Aquarius, and I had some thoughts. But that's why we have Twitter, right? Because you can it's just cesspool of negativity. No, I think that I wanted to really work to craft something, because at that point I was really the only person. I mean, we had a marketing committee and people that are wonderful, but I was the only person on the board with an actual PR background. So when a lot of these things were happening, there was a lot of fear in what do we do, and that's when sometimes they looked to PR. So I really wanted to try to, and I sat with my thoughts for a while because I wanted to craft something that was very intentional in the message that it delivered, because we also know that people were looking to Pride to set a tone and to be a bit of an example, and no one on the board takes that lightly. Everyone feels the weight of the responsibility of this volunteer position at a nonprofit very seriously. At the same time, we had to take a stand. And I think that there was a slight hesitation in that people don't know what that could yield. But I think one of the things that we're seeing, especially in media and corporate America, is that if you aren't taking a stand for anything, then you're communicating complacency. And that was never something that Miami Beach Pride was ever going to do. We were never going to say, well, it is what it is, I registered to vote. Absolutely not. So I think we made our position very clear that it was important. We disagreed with it, and we would continue our work as a community to give a platform to those that are disenfranchised, to also, and continue to provide our programming. One of the things that I also think was really important to remind people is Miami Beach Pride is free. You know, we are free to the public, and that is part of being inclusive. We are ADA compliant. We had our tent this year for the comedy pavilion, for those that might be on the spectrum. We wanted to make this as, no matter what Tallahassee says, Miami Beach Pride will remain a safe space for any and all who want to come and enjoy the program. And that I think was really important to drive that home, because I think there was a lot of fear, there was uncertainty, and we knew that some people were not going to like that. My attitude was, if you're already kind of saying that, you already probably have a feeling about Pride anyway. Right, but I do think that we have an opportunity as a free festival to try to ingratiate people, or maybe change opinions, or at least educate. You know, come and go see the women's tent. It was bumping all week long. Like, you know, go talk to some amazing, you know, people in the tea tent. We had amazing trans brothers and sisters. Like, come see it. You know, and I think that visibility element is still so important. And that's why in all of our statements, we wanted to craft something that was bold, inclusive, but also never close the door. Because I think that if we did that, we would only be furthering the divide. And that was something that we wanted Pride to be for all, even those who might oppose us in this moment.
So when you say never close the door, are you speaking in terms of sponsorships and everyone can sponsor you?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I think, yeah, that was a hot button issue this year as well, because people were looking. Yeah. So for those that might not know, Seattle Pride kicked out Amazon as a sponsor because of their donation record, and we actually got an incoming from Bloomberg saying, "What is Miami Pride's response to that in the wake of DeSantis signing this legislation?" So this was a really hot button issue, and you know, for us, I don't think she used our statement because it wasn't sensational. Because we said no, we don't want to do that. If we say no to someone, that closes a door in which exactly. And so while I think that it was important that if you see that float in that parade, and then you take it upon yourself to look at, oh, the company donated to a lot of anti-LGBT legislation, it is also up to us as voters and consumers to take them to task. This is me personally, I never felt like it was Pride's job to police that. We know that some folks, just as we're seeing now at the start of Pride, is performative, right? Anyone can put their logo in Photoshop, slap a rainbow on it, and say, we're an ally. I think now in this time of a lot of legislation attacking our community, especially our trans brothers and sisters, it is incumbent on us as voters to look at where those dollars are going. And I think we're seeing it with the gun lobby, we're seeing it with all social issues. It's very important. And so I think that reproductive rights, absolute racial issues, and I think that, you know, even taking a step further, there were some people that said, your police have a really active presence in Pride. And how can you let that happen? They can put a rainbow logo on a police car. They're killing black people in this country. You know, like and I also do a lot of social media. We got a lot of pushback from that. And I always want to honor that, and I think that that's important to have that platform to say that. But I also think too, I sat at a table with the chief of police, the commissioner, the police, and they were, whether performative or not, they were genuine and they showed up. They showed up to our ancillary events and they did not have to. They sent a message that said, we're here. And I think that that also matters. So I think it's easy in this era of online activism, cancel culture, to make that quick, like, knee-jerk reaction. And sure, a lot of people can have an opinion about police. However, I watched in the weeks leading up to, I was part of the safety briefing where they were saying, we're listening to make sure we can keep this safe for all of you. You know, and so what I saw as a consumer, and granted I did have a luxury position of being a board member to see all that, was I saw a genuine commitment by the Miami Beach Police Department to keep Pride safe, and also too, I watched those people, they had a lot of fun. They enjoyed themselves. They enjoyed themselves. And I think that that's why it is so incumbent on us. And granted, again, we as some that are sometimes disenfranchised have to bear the responsibility of carrying that conversation, and that's not lost on me personally, but I also think that that is the cross that we have to bear. And I don't think that